I then just had the urge to ask, why was it specifically that this client had been called to work with me? What was it about our connection that was important? And it was the answer to that question that's when it changed. Um, Suddenly I could feel this rush of energy from my root that came all the way up to my heart. And it was just like, um, I just had this moment of complete, just oneness, wholeness, and just all of this energy just whizzing through me. Um, and I had to stay in practitioner mode. I had to keep going. I couldn't stop and I couldn't say, what the hell is going on here? I just had to keep going. Meanwhile, I have goosebumps on goosebumps. I have my whole, I'm sweating. I'm, and I'm feeling a huge amount of activity in my heart. And it just was relentless.
Hi, everyone. It's Candace Craw-Goldman from quantumhealers.com. And today I have the beautiful Nina Morrocco with me. I think she's got candle going because I see some beautiful light in her face. Do you have a candle there?
I do.
Hi, Nina. Hi, beautiful
Hi,
Nina.
Candace.
How are you doing?
Oh,
Is it
thank you.
warm there? It's cold here. I've got a
It's
blanket
actually
on my
been
lap.
it's been really lovely the past few days. We've just had that opening up of spring and everything getting warm again. And it was 18 degrees today, which here is it's been a while. So yeah, it's been nice.
Yeah, everything's blooming and blossoming, even though we really need the rain. It's
Yeah.
nice to see spring coming, but with it comes flies for my horses. So that's a whole new adventure that starts up. Um,
Oh,
Nina, beautiful Nina has been busy doing all kinds of quantum healing sessions, and we were talking about other things, and you mentioned this one spectacular session you had, and I know you've referenced it a number of times, and I said, Nina, let's just do an interview. And why don't you just tell me all about it from top to bottom, and take your time because I know that it was impactful and something
yeah.
amazing happened. And so we're here to hear that story today. So take it away, Nina.
Oh, well, thank you for giving me the space to share it. I I've been used to having quite big things happen during sessions. We can get zapped and we can get all kinds of energy and I think through this work, our all of our inner senses get awakened and our extrasensory abilities get activated. All the clairs and all of that has kind of exponentially grown within the years that I've been doing quantum healing. So I was no stranger to things happening in sessions. Um, I've felt energy and I've um, felt things from clients, and very easily pick up things that are happening with clients and what's going on with them. But this session was what happened, and the impact of this session was very different and something I had never experienced before. And I don't know if I'll ever experience again. Um, It was essentially like any other session. A starseed had come to me and wanted to know about themselves. They wanted to know about this life. They wanted to know about their mission and their journey. And so I embarked on that session with them. And I came out of it completely different than when I went in.
Well, tell us as much as you can about the session itself. Can you give us any indication about her background, or does she, is she okay with you telling your part of the story? And are you sharing this anywhere else online or anything?
I don't tend to talk about this very much, and I haven't really talked about it. And I would rather keep the client and his information private because that's his stuff. And I've mentioned bits about this awakening, but I haven't really gone into detail about it anywhere else.
I knew that you were going to answer it that way, but I'm asking the question for the audience because as you're telling this story, I know that they're going to be thinking, I want to go listen to this session, right? And a lot of people, a lot of other quantum healers of all kinds, post sessions. Some people post some sessions. I've posted very few of myself. And but others post a lot of them, right? Or they write about them or whatever. So let's just say that it's not going to happen this time, and we're all hearing this just from the practitioner side, from
Yeah.
her perspective, and you can't go hear or see this session anywhere else. Okay, take it away.
Yeah. It was a fairly ordinary session. Like I said, it was just somebody who was curious about their path and their mission. Um, and the session began, and I'd gone through my usual process of preparing. I had just started with working with an oracle deck. It was a rose oracle deck. And I just started kind of going down that path of connecting with the rose, the lineage of the rose. And so that was something that to take note of because it was something that made itself known during the session. Um, there was a portion of the session where the client was discussing um, my healing work and my mission it and some that happens in sessions sometimes. It kind of goes to, you get information for yourself, but there was a little bit more to it. And I asked where this information was coming from and whom it was that was sharing this with us. And this energy said that they were the rose. And at that point I was kind of, okay, that's interesting. And I just continued the session and allowed the talking to continue. And I thought, I'm going to pull a card from that deck whilst they're talking, because I just feel like it's important to do that. And I did. And I was still continuing the session, still asking questions, still going forward. I shuffled the deck and I pulled a card and it came out and it was Rapture. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. I'm just going to leave that there. Continue. And then we got onto a point where we were able to start asking the higher self some questions. We started going down that path, doing any healing work that was needing to be done. And I then just had the urge to ask, why was it specifically that this client had been called to work with me? What was it about our connection that was important? And it was the answer to that question that's when it changed. Suddenly I could feel this rush of energy from my root that came all the way up to my heart. And it was just like, I just had this moment of complete, just oneness, wholeness, and just all of this energy just whizzing through me. And I had to stay in practitioner mode. I had to keep going. I couldn't stop and I couldn't say, what the hell is going on here? I just had to keep going. Meanwhile, I have goosebumps on goosebumps. I have I'm sweating. I'm feeling a huge amount of activity in my heart, and it just was relentless.
Okay, I
and I
have
just kept,
questions. So I have questions. But one main one, was this an online session?
It was, yeah. The client was in Australia, so there was quite a distance. Yeah.
Right, right. And have you had so, most people who, have had Kundalini experiences have felt like up the spine kind of things before. Have you felt an up the spine kind of energy?
I
Or
hadn't had anything like that before. I'd had awakenings before. I'd had realizations and sort of things coming online before, but nothing that physical or dramatic had ever occurred before. Um, and it lingered, it stayed, it was there for a long time. So yeah, nothing like that. It was huge. It felt huge.
so when you say it lingered like past the session or
Oh yeah,
days?
for weeks. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And I still want you to talk about it, of course, but so you didn't have tingles or any kind of prompting or indication that this was coming. It just came upon you.
The only thing that happened, which was the day before, and yeah, the only thing that happened which made me think something was going on was that my hand started twitching the day before. My right hand started twitching, and I had all this energy coming up my arm. And that was the day before, and I thought that's interesting. And I didn't really think much of it, but yeah, that was mm, a possible indication that something big was going to happen. Um, I didn't think anything of it other than, oh, that's a bit of energy kind of thing. Um, before, no, no, nothing really came to me. It just felt like a normal session, but then just this huge wave of energy just right up my spine and into my heart. And then I was just, I wasn't in my body. I was away. I was connecting with something far greater. And yeah.
Fantastic. So you finished the session. Did
Hmm.
you? So sometimes when you're talking to the wizard, yeah, like when you've gotten some of the advice or things happen for you, did you address it even in the slightest way during the session? Like to the higher self of the person,
I
or
did.
even a little
I
bit?
did. I did. I didn't want to give too much away because I didn't want to make the session about me or
Sure, of
anything that was
course.
going on with me. However, the sensation was so strong, especially in my sacral and my root. It was so strong. I had to mention it,
Right. You
and
have to.
um, I had to say, is there anything that I should know about this energy? Um, I can't remember. I wish I could remember what the answer was. Um, uh, uh,
Well,
yeah, I
was
think I just,
was the higher self recognizing like, oh yeah, I know what's going on there, or was it? I mean, do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Okay.
yeah. The higher self knew what was going on. Um, and then at the end of this, right at the end of the session, there was a message that came through for me, which was, I mean, it hit me so deeply. I was in tears, and I knew I had to keep it together as much as possible so I could get through to the end of the session. And I did get to the end of the session. It was all fine. And then I sat there for a minute, and I knew I wasn't going back to normal. I wasn't okay. And I said to myself, you've got to get outside. You've got to ground. And I would, after any session, go out and ground. And there's a little clump of trees that I go and sit in. There was no amount of grounding that was going to shift what had just happened. There was no, I mean, I could have buried myself and I still wouldn't have been grounded. It was, it was ridiculous. Um, and And at that point, the synchronicities started, the connection started, the connection with nature. There was a key in a tree. Like I was walking through the forest and there was a key just in a tree, and I'm going, really?
Wow, if that's not a message, I don't know what is. And you're talking about nature and everything. My cat just jumped up and like threw down a potted plant from right there while you're talking about going out grounding into nature. That cat has been so much a part of interviews lately.
Oh,
comes
really?
in, comes in and yeah, makes a, exclamation point on some stuff. Wow,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
And I had all of this emotion just come. It was just raw emotion and grief that just came up and through me. And I was just like, well, I just need to write this out. I need to. And I thought maybe it was going to be a day or so that this stuff was coming up. No, this was 3.5, nearly 4 months. I went through this entire process. Um, there were points that were a little unnerving and scary because had I not known what it was, I think I would have been, yeah, a bit freaked out. Um, the only place I felt normal and okay was in nature. That was the only place that, I was so connected to it. It was as if, the trees were waving at me and the wind knew when I was going to come around the corner, and it was singing and dancing with me, all of it. And there was just this realization that source was not something we're far away from. It's right here with us, and we are it. And it was just this huge, getting goosebumps, huge just reconnection with where I was. And yeah, it was huge. And my psychic abilities, it's as if they all just came online all at once. I would walk past people on the street and I would know what was wrong with them. I knew what physically, mentally, and emotionally was going on with them. I would see people, but I wouldn't just see them. I would see into them, and I would see everything that was going on with them. And it was so on point. It became funny sometimes. It was just, yeah. Um, yeah. So and my channeling as well. That was the other part of it that really came online. I'd never gone through a process like this before. I didn't really have anyone I could talk to about it that could relate. Um, so I basically wrote my own survival guide through channeling.
I love that. That's perfect.
Because it was just like, team, help me. How do I get through this? And it just journals and journals I would write, how I would get through this. And a lot of it was my future self that was coming back and guiding me through this part and how I was going to get through it. I think one of my biggest battles in the whole process was my ego, and my ego wanting to attach what was happening to me to someone or something. And my quest for love and my heart, that was the biggest challenge, was that I hadn't yet realized that I hadn't fully opened my heart to myself yet. I hadn't fully fallen in love with myself yet. And that was the journey that this was leading me on. And so there was this constant battle with my ego, wanting to be in control of this situation. And then there was my heart, which was opening, and all of this grief from so many other lifetimes, from so many other experiences and realms, from this lifetime, from my childhood, from so much, it was all coming up, and I could feel it moving through each energy center. And as it did, I would start to see images and pictures of lifetimes or memories or things would come to me. And I knew I just had to work through all of these experiences for it to move up to the next energy center, next chakra. So it was a really intense process. And of course, I was single mom at the time, doing what single moms do, and I had to keep going for my daughter, but I also knew that I had to get through this process as much as possible. But the activation and the healing in my heart was probably the biggest and most impactful part of it. I had quite a few sessions for myself during that time to ground me. Because nothing else was grounding me. So I'm going to have a session and get the information that's going to help me ground, that's going to help me be here. Because yeah, it was a really intense time.
I'm going to mention something that, it just has to do with intuition and doing this work. So I had an interesting morning, and one of the things that happened this morning was I got to view a colleague of ours, a French colleague of ours, Coralie Roederer, is involved in a film documentary about quantum healing. It's really fantastic. It's in process right now. And in there, there's some snippets of a lot of different things, but and I promise this has a little bit of relevance. I promise. But in there, we actually use some excerpts from my session with Dolores all those years ago, which I've never released, although I've meant to, and I've even talked about it, and I've even done projects to release it. And I've always come to the release and publish button, and I never have. I just never have. Not, there's no logical reason. It was just always my intuition. It was just always, nope. I don't know why, but nope. I'm putting that on the shelf. And a couple of projects were kind of, they weren't small, and for me anyway. There was time involved, and so this one's going to be out, right? And I was looking at and I just have 10, 12 minutes in the thing, but part of it was a couple of the things that Dolores said, and of course, I remember them, but that the editor picked those out to highlight, and the way he illustrated them with, the imagery was one of the things, because I watched the excerpts twice. I ran through them twice today before our interview, and there's this one part. There's this one part about my body and the frequencies and the energies and what was going on with my body. And Dolores said, "Oh, does this have to do with the earth and where we're going?" And my higher self said, "Yes." And then the exchange simply was, she needs to go outside. She needs to go outside. And there's just like there it was the thing this morning when I was reviewing, and there were so many beautiful clips in there. It's the one I focused on the most. And
Yeah.
even like, and I'm like, why? It was like it had highlighter on it, right? Like, let's go outside thing. And so as you're talking about going outside, I think that's why, right? I mean, you and I, we
Yeah.
have this planned conversation, and there's this prompt, that it wasn't anything that I didn't know, but it was just focused upon. And I actually think that something, is it Wi-Fi? Perhaps. Is it the electrical system? Maybe. There's something about boxing ourselves up in these places
Yes.
that is far more detrimental to us than we know. I mean, we can take bits and pieces of it apart all over the place, like, your feet. You're supposed to be touching with your foot the ground
Yeah.
all the time.
Okay.
And we've disconnected from that and so many other things that we talk about grounding all the time. But I think there's more to discover here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think nature speaks to us in a way that nothing else can, and it is so pure and divine in its essence. And when somebody says nature is my church, I completely understand that now because of that experience. Um, because I just realized how it was me and I was it. And it's as if nature knew what I was working through, what I was working on. I would see like there were little nodules on trees were heart shaped. It was like leaves were falling down in front of me and they were heart shaped. And it was because I was going through such a huge heart healing, open heart surgery, I called it. It was really like, a, and yeah, the messages were just coming in thick and fast. And I realized, yeah, like I said before, the divine is not out there or up there. It's all around us. And that that connection, that resonance. I remember doing a session years ago for someone where they were a piece of lichen on a branch. That was their experience, and they were telling us um, their connection with the tree, with the mycelium, the everything around about, with the air, the oxygen. They were just communicating what their experience was and what they were aware of. But then they talked about what happened when an animal or a human came into that field, and they described that everything that was alive in that space would be able to read the frequency of the human or the animal, and they'd be able to read it in a way that they could emanate a frequency that would heal, that would shift them, that would change where they were, and yeah, heal them, light them up. um and that gave me an understanding of sort of nature's connection with us from that perspective, from their perspective. And I think that's a wonderful thing to be able to see, and that's something that happens so often with BQH, is that people have these experiences of being parts of nature and being able to see through that. And I think as humans living our very human lives, being able to gain that other perspective is just so profound. And yeah, beautiful.
So, so you are a different person since
I
then.
am, yes. I am,
Has
very much.
anybody else noticed that? I mean, I'm sure people that you've talked to about it may have something to say, but have like other people said, "Hey, Nina, what's up with you?" Has it been noticed?
I don't know if that specific situation was a thing that made people, wonder how I got to where I am. But certainly since I've been doing quantum healing, people have said, how are you in this space? How do you have this perspective of life? Um, I don't know, not this particular instance. I've certainly had realizations and understandings of situations and gone back to people and said, hey, I have a totally different perspective on what happened there now. I see it. I see it from a space I was not in before. um, but yeah, no, I don't think anyone's really noticed.
So
Um,
you said it took you 3 or 4 months, and I so do you see do you see the way that to be described as like for that to be integrated or for you to get through it or for it to be over? I mean, what words do you use? 3 or 4 months, what?
well, it took me on a journey of healing and integration. Um, it took me on a journey which initiated another level of healing, mainly the heart healing. Um, and I mean, that journey itself through the initial activation and all of the energies being released through all of the chakras, that took maybe 4 or 5 weeks to get through my body. And then after that, I went on another kind of stint of healing and sessions I had Reiki sessions. I went on sound
Wow.
baths. I did so many things to try and just bring up as much as possible and get it released. Um, and then I would say there was a period of grieving where I kind of learned about grief and how close it is to elation and how they just sit right next to each other.
Oh boy.
And
That I know. That I know. I
yeah,
had a moment of that. I had a moment of that days after my brother was killed. And it
yeah,
was so strange to me. It was so strange that I was terrified of it because, this was 1989. This was a long time ago, long before I knew what Reiki was or awakening was or anything was. And all I know is I noticed that feeling. I know exactly where I was. I was in front of his linen closet of all places because I was in charge of cleaning out his things and cleaning out his apartment.
yeah, okay.
And I was taking towels out. And nobody was there with me. I was all by myself. So it was not great, but I mean, it was a place where I could just cry. I didn't have to
Mm.
bother anybody else. And I was just letting more crying come out. And I felt that the elation
Yeah,
right next door to that grief. And it stopped me cold. And I actually, it terrified me in a way because I'm like, I mean, I really was like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me that anything like that would be in my field right now? I didn't even know how to say my field back then. But I
yeah,
mean, I certainly felt it and I was just like, what even is that? How can
yeah,
that be? So I know what that's like.
yeah. That's yeah. When because we're conditioned to only go so far in our grieving, but when you push that boundary even further and you allow yourself to really feel it, there's nothing there's nothing else that can make you grieve anymore. The natural next step is elation and joy because you're not hiding yourself from anything. Um,
That's brilliant, Nina.
And it
Yes,
was one of the most profound realizations that I had during that time. And it's since then I have never ever been scared of grief, of crying, of letting it out. Um, I think it is one of the most powerful tools that we have to be able to really feel every part of what we're going through. Um, and that was one of the biggest steps for me. So yeah, that whole process, I would say, and then integrating all of that was 3 4 months, I would say, until I felt me again.
Did your nighttime dreams change at all?
Oh, my night times were really interesting because I didn't sleep. I was wide awake. Um, 4 o'clock in the morning became my best friend, because I would go out, and it was late spring, early summer when it began. Um, I would go outside and I would sit amongst the morning dew, and I would just let it soak on my skin and listen to the birds wake up. And that was my favorite time of day. That was a gift. That was just what a joy, this cacophony of bird song, just being bathed by morning dew. It was just, it was my time. It was a beautiful thing. No, I had so much energy in my body. I could not sleep for a long, long time. Um, and I kind of wondered how we managed to do that. But I was just so energized by the activation. Sleep was not on the agenda at all.
I don't know if I've mentioned it so many times, but if you've ever watched or saw the tandem session I had with Pamela Erilyn,
Yes.
yeah, so that when we went through that, I didn't sleep after that. It was 6 weeks. It was
Oh,
6 weeks where it was
well.
like I didn't really have to sleep at all. I mean, I would
Mhm.
go and lay down, but and during the day, I was as on top of my energy and just, I mean, it was amazing after that. I not before and really not since have I had that kind of energy.
I know what you mean.
I'd like, yeah, I would love to order that up again. So that, that kind of prompts an interesting question. Going through what you did, you think that's like a one-off? Like that can't happen again? Or does it seem like that's done and you're not going to have anything like that again? Or could you imagine that something like that or that thing would happen again?
Well, well, if there's one thing this work has taught me is that I, I cannot predict anything.
Right?
And if,
Yes,
um,
perfect answer.
and and if you think it's going to go one way, then there's no doubt the universe is going to teach you uh, the lesson that you've not already got. So,
Right? Oh, that's so funny. That's just
so
so funny.
um, yeah, I'm the eternal student, and whatever they have in store, I'll, if they think I'm ready for it, I'll go through it. It's uh, the the impact that this work has on the practitioner is something so profound that six years ago when I first came into this work and I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, all excited about it. Little did I know what was in store and impact and evolution that I would be catapulted into. Um, it's just it's profound, what this
Right?
work does to the practitioner. Um, And
I had an
there's no
email.
hiding from it.
No, no, not at all. And I love that you mentioned this. I mean, just this morning, there's an email that came in of, I'm thinking about taking the class, but mostly because I want to know, can I do this on myself? Which of course, there's a way to answer that question, but it also brings up this idea of how much this work changes us, you
Yeah,
know? I mean, when you
massive.
it has to be said too that some people, you and I are part of that, where we do sessions as full time. It's our focus, and we
Yeah.
do session. But that isn't the only person who could benefit from learning. I mean, just going through the process of learning this is is and can be a revelation like that. And to be able
Yes.
to accept this sort of understanding and, yes, skill level, this tool that you might help others with. It might be a sister or a friend. You might not touch it for 3 years or whatever, and then or it might just help you understand other situations like that. It really can't be, underestimated how much it does change us.
Oh yeah. Yeah. From finishing the course and making my folder, something happened in that time of me in that space of creation and
Yeah.
becoming a practitioner. Uh, it was very profound. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was a very profound time. And I was so sprightly and so excited and fascinated by doing this. Yeah, I had no idea where it was going to take me and who it was going to turn me into,
Right.
um, and how humbled I am by this work. And I mean, people even ask me now about my belief systems about all kinds of things. And I I cannot commit
Right.
to any one belief system
Right.
about anything
Right. Yeah.
because that's not how it all works. And I have been
Yeah.
proven in so many occasions that whatever I think, there is some other perspective and viewpoint that's going to smash my ideas out the water. So it's, yeah, it never stops being fascinating and it never stops being a learning and a lesson and a evolution. It's just,
It
yeah.
reminds me, Dolores used to say, well, then that happened. And so then I thought I knew it all. And then she'd laugh and she'd go, until she goes, and it's just
Yeah.
always, always, always expanding, of course. So,
Yeah.
it makes me think too of other kinds of focus professions, even helper professions. Think about some of the more conventional ways people help other people out there. There's a lot of burnout, like
Yeah.
burnout, like and some hardening and some callous that some of those people, very well-meaning people, have
Mhm.
or end up taking on to protect themselves. I haven't found that with us. You
No.
know, it's just this whole conversation that we're having. I'm looking at you, and I've known you all of those years,
Yeah.
and I can even see like snippets of round tables and times that we've talked to before. And you talk about spring. You have just blossomed into this magnificent woman.
Oh,
Um,
thank
and
you.
and you've always been such an amazing mother. But
Thank you.
but the It just showed up in my head. So maybe there's a few things going on here energetically. And as I'm looking at you, oh God, it's going to sound like I made it up, but some of the softest flower petal you can touch is that of a rose. It's one of the most velvety thing that you
Yeah.
can talk about, that you can touch, and that you really do seem to be kind of, that energy is about you.
It's so funny you say that, and thank you. During that whole time, I had that awakening. I wanted to find out what my essence was. I wanted to find out who I truly was, at a level of my essence. And what you just described was the journey that I went on during that session. It was a very tactile experience I had. Um, and it was the
Yeah.
velvety
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
texture
you're
of a rose.
obviously you're
So thank you.
broadcasting it. You're broadcasting it.
Thank
Wow,
you.
that's fantastic. Yeah, and I glance at my clock and it's 4:44, of course. So I mean, all of these prompts, that, so in our world, for those of you who don't know, us having that connection point right there, and then the first time I'm looking at the clock seeing 4:44, that's just like a confirmation. It's just like, yep.
Yeah.
It's just like
Um,
that's absolutely what's going on there. I don't know. It's like people are going to think I'm making this up now too, but I mean, I'm sitting in this chair. Part of me is like, okay, I'm currently in the basement, right? I mean, sometimes I'm at the other house, with a different background and stuff, but this is the basement. And ever since ever since you were saying that your root and sacral, like, I mean, like I've been looking at the floor going, so what can vibrate the floor that it's like, I mean, it's almost as if, some of the echoes or frequencies are, as you're telling the story, are headed right this way. So,
Oh,
wow,
wow.
you have to show me that deck. Now I'm curious about the deck as well. What a fantastic thing, to have as another tool to
Yeah.
consider what's going on in your session. I talked to
Yeah.
Kenny just yesterday, which of course, there's a lot of combined energies there, as
Yeah.
well. And he had already like turned off the recording of the session, and he said, now I want to pull a card, you know?
Yeah.
Well, do you
Yeah.
know what card he pulled? Look at all of these connections, right? All of these connections that we can make here right now. It's like we're little kids, or, and like, we're discovering some things. So I'm going to tie this all the way into what I mentioned just a few minutes ago, that session I had with Pamela, where the energy and, I was practically levitating and all of that. The
Yeah.
energy was so big and so high. And I've come to believe that the gamma wave
Mhm.
frequency was like
Yeah.
off the charts during that, because it wasn't a
Yeah.
deep, relaxing trance at all. It was nothing
This is
like,
high.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was nothing like theta near delta or anything like that. It was
Yeah.
high
Yeah.
and very
Mhm.
coherent up here. Well, he pulled the card. I think it said Princess Gamma or Queen Gamma, something Gamma. I
Oh.
know. I know. Crazy.
Wow.
Wait, I might be able to look at it. So I'll let you talk, and I'm gonna read exactly what
Use,
it is. I can find it.
Using cards, well, the way I do it is I will pull cards before a session. I will not look at them. I
That's
will
what he
not
did.
look at them until the end of the session.
Aurora of Gamma.
Oh, wow.
I have to do it sideways,
Whoa.
otherwise. Yeah. Crazy.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So
And
that's what
then,
he did. Fantastic.
yeah. And then my client and I will look at them once the session is finished. And it's just amazing what comes through. It's just like, and I always say, I'm not a card reader. I'm not a card reader. I am just facilitating this message to you. But oh my God, it's just incredible what comes through, and it never ceases to. And it's something tangible as well that the client can take away. It's a tangible, they can take a photo of the card and its meaning, and it's like tangible information because everything is so um non-tangible with a session.
Right.
So, like having the cards, I feel like gives them something to take away with them and something practical that they can focus on. So, yeah, it's a nice thing to add.
Years and years ago, um, when I first became aware of cards, I really was like, I just really don't understand this. It seemed like a gimmick to me, sort of like, I really didn't understand this. This was somewhere between after my brother died and before I found Reiki and some other things, and I was still asking a lot of questions. But I had a friend who was kind of helping me um, wake up, shall we say. She was perfect. She was an older woman, and she knew exactly how to talk to me because she didn't go all out, because I wouldn't have been able to. I would have run away for sure.
Yeah.
She just enough. But I did ask her about cards. And I said, I don't understand. How is that supposed to work? And how can a deck of cards? And she goes, well, let me just, tell you, there's something in your energy. There's something in your energy that helps you connect to, a particular card in there. It's the matching of the energy. So the whole deck
Yeah.
has all these different kinds of energies, and it's an actual physical, almost like if you can think about like a magnet, right?
Mhm.
Magnet and metal, and they come together, and you can feel that energy. So it's a lot more subtle than that, but a card reading is very
Yeah.
much just like that. It's that kind of
Yeah.
energy that you don't have to believe in it or really anything. It's a very physical thing, I think, anyway.
Hmm. Yeah. It's an energy match. I think when going into a session like this as well, the energies gather. They gather with us, and our combined teams start working way
Right.
before the session sometimes. So when you tune into that and you ask for them to speak through the deck, what is important to know, um, that energy match will be what shows up. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, and that whole energy match. I mean, we could do a whole show on that. We're coming down to our end of our time together, but that
yeah.
energy match, pardon me, is it's so important about everything, not just cards. I'm going to clear my throat.
Yeah.
Here's one that I'm noticing a lot these days, and I'm noticing, or I'm finding it bubble up in circles that aren't ours, in non-healer type circles. And that's the energy people are starting to, I think, especially since, 2020 and that whole scene, they're starting
Mhm.
to understand that fear is an energy, and it can be absolutely manipulated, but it also can be recognized as it begins to come on, and you can neutralize some of it. And it's
Mhm.
often for your own good to do that, because if you latch onto it and it ramps up, that's a kind of energy that attracts stuff too. More
Yeah,
if you are
for sure.
afraid of something, my God, you're like you're like sending out the band and the invitations and all the things for whatever that is that you are afraid of to come
Yes.
visit you. You know,
Yes. Absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
the curious thing for me is I'm seeing more kind of just awakening or maybe even non-awake people going,
Oh yeah. I'm seeing a lot of that at the moment. I'm seeing a lot of um people who are in that sort of cusp of have maybe a little bit alternative, but not really awake, having moments and experiences where they're going, they they can't they can't put anything to that yet. They're having these moments where they're questioning reality as they know it. Um, I've had quite a few clients lately being of that same kind of um, that same caliber. You know, they're just in a place of waking up and questioning everything and being in that place where they want to tell everybody about it, but nobody around them gets it. Um, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But what you were saying about the fear and the that energy creating more of that, that's definitely connected as well. I think to people are having more premonitions.
yeah.
Premonition is happening way more, especially in dreams. I had one just the other day. I had a really, really uncomfortable dream um, that I woke up from that stuck with me all day. I just had this really uncomfortable, not nice feeling. And the very next day, something happened, and it was like, that's exactly the energy that was in that dream that was following me around all day yesterday. And this is why.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Could be a blessing and then also, yeah, feeling, so often those, some of those feelings we look around and we try to apply it to something in our life and not till it's over do we go, oh, well,
Mhm.
that was it. I thought it might have been that, but it really was this over here. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Nina, I'm out of time today. Will you tell everyone what
Sure.
kind of sessions you are doing these days and what's coming up for you in your practice and in your world in the coming future?
Well, I am still doing BQH. That's my main type of sessions that I offer. I do full sessions for anybody who's had a session with me before. I do sort of shorter, more streamlined sessions. And I also do mentorships. I also do full, like 3, 5 session mentorships for people wanting to go way, way deeper. And it's wonderful. They're really beautiful. It's an amazing process. Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, thank you for spending some of your evening time with me. And I send
Thank you for
you
having me.
my best wishes and we'll catch up again really soon, okay?
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you so much.
All right. So, if you are a quantum healer of any kind, if you are a service to others practitioner of any kind, you can be a coach or a Reiki practitioner. You could even be just a card reader, just maybe you read tarot cards. We'd love to have you at quantumhealers.com. We are a guru free community and we like to support each other and we share our understandings about different approaches, all in a horizontal way in our community. We have a listing service and a learning platform too. So come join us or come see what we have to offer you as a client at quantumhealers.com. Thanks again, Nina. Till next time.
Thank
Bye
you
for
so
now.
much. Bye.